It's the never-ending to-do list. It's like when tasks coming in at a speed much higher than you're able to scratch things off of the list. It's a very unsatisfying feeling, and I've experienced this quite a bunch of times where I just feel so stressed looking at this long list ahead of me, just thinking, how can I make it shorter? How can I do it faster? But then I found out that it's often not really that part that we can change. We cannot change always how long tasks take and how much needs to be done. But what we can change is how we deal with it, how we cope with the pressure and with the stress. So over time, I have done my research, I've tried a lot of different things, and I became a lot better at dealing with stress. And I am going to let you in on all the details of the things that I've tried and what worked well for me. If you're experiencing severe stress that's affecting your health or your mental health, please contact a health professional or a doctor. My advice is in no means medical and only based on what I learned from experience. So first of all, prioritize. It's only since I've become a product manager that I understand the importance of prioritization. It makes a lot of sense to me to have like a list where the most urgent items are on the top and the least urgent items that are almost irrelevant, and when they become irrelevant you can kind of like remove them, those on the bottom, so that every time when a new task comes in you can weigh it against what you have and put it into the right position. And this way you are very organized in your to-dos and you don't lose oversight of what's the most important to finish first. My second tip would be to plan your day ahead of time, either in the evening or in the morning. You can start your day with a list of intentions. That's basically just a shorter version of your to-do list, but actually possible to accomplish in a day. And it may happen that at the end of the day, your intentions list has become longer than it was when you started your day. But this is where you put it back to the original to-do list, which I call the backlog, and weigh it again on the right priorities. And that's where you create again a new plan for the next day. Just know that a plan is always just a plan, and if it doesn't work out, that can happen and that's okay. With zooming out, I mean putting things into perspective, rationalizing things so that it actually makes sense into the bigger picture. For example, sometimes I've experienced this feeling where I said something wrong in a presentation or a meeting, or I blacked out and I just feel like I want to sink through the ground. I just want to remove myself from the earth. It's just such an embarrassing feeling. And it hunts you down for days just thinking about what people could be thinking of you, or how bad that experience was. But the funny thing is that it's actually your brain tricking you. It's not as bad as you think it is. It's just that your body, your brain, it just makes you feel like that. And when you start to rationalize it and zoom out and put it into perspective, and you put yourself into the shoes of those who are listening to you at the moment, you'll start to see that if you hear someone that says something wrong or blacks out for a moment, it's nothing weird. You might not even have noticed. You might not even care. And the funny thing is, it might, even if it surprises you for a moment, you just move on. It's something that happens and you don't even remember it an hour after, while the person itself might be beating themselves up for days. So sometimes putting yourself into the shoes of someone else, or putting yourself into a different perspective, it can really help to calm your brain down. And when your brain calms down, your body calms down and you release a whole lot of stress. So be kind to yourself and don't judge yourself harder than that a friend would judge you. Accept that mistakes happen and then learn from them, and then you move on. Fourth item is don't care too much. And I don't mean don't care at all, I mean really not too much. Because when you are very passionate about a job or about something you do, it's really easy to let it flow into your personal life, into your evening hours, and to get involved in every single detail of it. Now, when you're working in a company, it's sometimes not needed, and you put yourself in extra stress by getting involved in things that aren't your responsibilities. So sometimes saying no to a discussion or even just listening in and letting other people decide, it's okay. We don't have to hold everything in our own hands, even if you feel like it's your baby and you want to have a say in everything. It's sometimes okay to just kind of sit back and let others do their job. For example, as a product manager, you often get dragged into sales or marketing discussions. And even though I have very strong opinions on those, I don't always feel like I have to act on those opinions, because that often comes also with like leading specific initiatives or like adding more detail, more work to do, and you just create more pressure for yourself. Now, this is okay sometimes, especially if you have the time or if this is something you really want to or some field you want to grow into. But if you are dealing with a lot of stress already, it's good to sometimes take a step back and focus on what you are actually meant to do. So the work-life balance is a tough one, especially when you are working remote. And you have a job that's like flexible. It is difficult to separate what you do for fun versus when you work, and sometimes it can be even worse when you have to be on standby and reply to messages, people. What I find most important is to really clearly define your working hours, even if it's on a day-to-day basis, and to set some rituals on how you start your day and how you end it. For example, I always sit in this space. This is my working space. I go to it, I dress up to get there. And when I leave, I also have my own ritual to kind of like wind down. The winding down can be different for everyone. For example, some people like to sport. I personally like to cook after my day of work, but also sometimes going on walks and taking a book to read. It really helps you to kind of take your mind away from work. Because what I often experience is that if I would work up all the way up to bedtime and I go to sleep, I keep dreaming about my work. It's very annoying and very stressful. In the morning, I'm just not rested at all. So this is just a tip, and it's very much related to the next point, which is to stay healthy. And this has a lot to do with the previous one. It's about taking breaks, about drinking enough water, about eating healthy, working out, making sure that you take time off, really off, clearing your mind, because you cannot always be on. It will just at some point burn you out. So make sure that you listen to your body and keep a healthy mind, because there's a reason why people don't work when they feel sick or when they are burned out. It's really important to keep caring for yourself so that you can actually be happy and care for your work. So there are many resources online to choose from when looking into time management. Is it hard to choose? Yes, but it's also fun to try. I actually tried a whole bunch of things and it was kind of fun, especially when you find it click with something that just works for you. For me, this was time blocking. I always block time in my calendar for specific tasks. But for you, something else could work. For example, Pomodoro, if you really like to kind of divide your tasks in focus times. Or if you are more of a procrastinator, then you might want to look into Eat That Frog. But really, just do the research and find something that works for you, because when you feel productive and when you are actually scratching things off that list, it's also just a very satisfying feeling. So this item is interesting. It's bonding with your colleagues, especially in a remote or a management position. It's so important that you team up with the peers around you. A study of Harry T. Rice in relationship science states that it only takes 2 different tricks to establish a bond between you and someone else. One is about engagement and responsiveness, so meaning that don't leave someone hanging, reply to them. Actually start a conversation and make sure that you reply and they reply to you. The other is vulnerability. And it's kind of interesting because it means that if you share something personal of yourself with someone else, that's not just small talk about the weather, and that person replies back to you with something personal about themselves, then you've already reached a closer bond than a large number of relationships between friends that have been friends for years. And why is this important? It's because when you have a close relationship with your colleagues, it's a lot easier to talk to them about stress-related topics. Talking often helps to relieve some stress, but also to say no to them or to ask them for help when you need it. It's so easy when you're deep with your head into the work to completely miss on the bigger picture, where you could see how far you've come and all the things that you've accomplished. It's so good to reward yourself on milestones. Even sometimes celebration is needed when you got out of bed that morning and actually finished your day. So what I like to do usually is I love to take myself a can of Red Bull when I accomplish something. I used to buy myself even magazine when I would finish a big presentation or something. But really celebrate those milestones either alone or with others, maybe with your team. But it's so important to just create a happy environment for yourself where you are positive, optimist, and look at the good stuff. And that leads me to the end of this video. I hope it was helpful for you. Thank you for watching if you made it this far, and if you have any other ideas or how you deal with stress or cope with the pressure, please leave it in the comments so that we can learn from each other. And keep an eye out because I have some more content in this direction coming soon.